Shlomi Goldstein, right?
You got it?
You're on camera, yeah. The numbers go.
Okay.
I just
So
have
we're
it
starting on
for
119B. It's Gufa. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines from the wide lines.
Whoa, Hershey. 6:43.
One,
You have to show me up early.
19B. So Gufa means that we're going to return to a statement that was said before. Usually Gufa was...
What does the line start with, Rabbi?
The line starts with the Shimon ben Shattach. We finished
6 lines from the
wide
lines
lines
and
up. And Kuf Yud, yeah, it's right there.
Where? You said from the
You
wide.
see the Tais V'Sikut Damasni?
Yeah, it's right there.
So, okay.
Okay, fine.
Usually Gufa is quoting a statement of Amiroim. Here the Gufa is quoting a Tosefta, which is a little surprising. So this theory that we have that Gufa is quoting Amiroim and Amar Mar is quoting Baises is not perfect. Okay.
What's the difference between the Tosefta and a Brisa?
Tosefta is one of the Baises. Brisa just means it's outside the Mishnah. Bar means outside. And Tosefta means that it's an addition, so it's also outside. So, Gufa. It was taught before. Shnei Atzamis, we have 2 bones. And on the 2 bones, at the ends of the 2 bones, is 2 half olive sizes of flesh, and we're talking about human flesh. So an olive size of human flesh would make the house impure. Because if you touch the bones, you become tummy. We're not talking about contact. We're talking about tumas oil, making a house tummy. So for that you need a kazayas of basar. V'hichnes r'shneim shnayim lebayas. You put the 2 heads into the house, the 2 edges of the bones, not the meat side. So it's partially in, partially out. Babayas ma'al aleim, and the house is a covering over these 2 ends. So habayas tami, the house is tami. Yehuda ben Akusa mishum Rabbi Yaakov. Yehuda ben Akusa says in the name of Rabbi Yaakov, Heichshnei atzamis mistarfin lekazayas. How can you have these 2 bones joining to a kazayas?
The meat is on either. They're on the sides that are in the house.
No, it was on the other side.
Wait again. So explain it again.
There we have.
You have 2 bones, right?
Yeah.
Would that have meat on them on either side?
No, you have 2 pokies. One end is a bone, one end is meat. The bone
I'm
end
sorry.
is in the house.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
So, Rabbi Yehuda ben Akusa says in the name of Rabbi Yaakov that we can't use the bone if you don't have a full olive size on it. And since there's 2 bones, each one with a half olive, it doesn't work. Rish Lakish says that Leishanu Ella Etzem Dahaviyad. This is referring to a bone that has meat on the outside. It's not a shomer. It doesn't have meat on the inside. It has meat on the outside. And we're discussing if it can be considered a yad. The Tanna Kama holds that it can be a handle to the meat. That means tumah can be imported and exported through the handle. And our discussion is, will it make a tumas oyel as well? Aval nima. But if it would just be a hair, loy have a yad. A hair on this, let's say there would be skin at the end of the meat or something, and there would be a hair that's sticking out of it, and the hair would be in the house. That everyone would agree would not be considered the yad, the handle. Why? Because it would break if you pulled the hair. Rabbi Yochanan Amar afilu nima nami have a yad. Rabbi Yochanan says no, a hair is also a handle. So our machlekes here between Rish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan is if we say the same thing that we say by a bone, do we say it with a hair? Eis for Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan has a question to Rish Lakish. Or sheyesh lav kazayis basar. If we have skin that has on it kazayis of meat, kazayis of flesh, I should say. Hanagea b'tziva yotzi mimeno. If someone touches a strand of the flesh, u'b'sayra shekenegdai, and the hair that's opposite it is tamei. Okay. Now, I should point out that there's a possibility that a hair could be considered a shomer, but a hair before we said would not be a yad, according to Rish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan says that a handle is also considered a yad. Yeah. Regular Gemara or Kushyates. So the concept is like this, that even though we said earlier that a yad for tumah, we're discussing something becoming impure or giving off impurity. We're discussing we have the impure object itself. What about things that are sticking out of it? So, like for example, this has a little piece there, and on the bottom it has a little thing coming out. Would that give off the impurity, even though that's not food? Would that give off the impurity as well? And does that little stem combine? That's what we're discussing. So we said that for a yad, if it's just a handle, like a stem, or like a bone that's attached to the piece of meat, we said that the tumah goes back and forth, but it doesn't join together with it. If it's a shomer, for example, there's a peel on this, that's a shomer that's protecting it, so then that combines as well. However, there is a stringency to the yad that the shomer doesn't have. That stringency is that it doesn't need to be directly opposite the food. If I have a long bone and I touch the other end of the bone, so the tumah will still travel through and make whatever touches that end tumah. By the shomer, I don't say that. Even though a shomer is much stricter, even though a shomer combines to the size, but by a shomer you need to touch directly opposite the tumah. Notice if I have a long piece of skin, and part of it is attached to the meat, the rest is like dangling off. I don't become tummy by touching the skin that's not directly opposite it. We learned before it needs to be directly opposite the food. That's by a shomer. So even though a shomer has all these chumras that it combines, but there's also this leniency that it needs to be directly opposite. So the discussion if a hair could be considered a yad or a shomer is also a discussion is if I need to touch it directly opposite the tumah itself. So Rish Lakish said that a hair is not a yad. And Rabbi Yochanan says it is a yad. So here we say, Rabbi Yochanan asks Rish Lakish, he asks to Rish Lakish, he asks on Rish Lakish. He said we have a Mishnah or a Brisa that says that if someone touches the hair, he's tummy. Why should he be tummy? Shouldn't be tummy. It's not he's ignoring one word in the Brisa. It says shekenegdai, the hair directly opposite it. But he's assuming that it's the hair that's hanging out. So why should it be tummy? My love, mishum yad. It must be that it's a yad. And a yad, you don't have to touch directly opposite it. With the second wide line at the end. Where it says light. Mishum shomer. It's a shomer. It's not a yad. Granted, it's not. It's just a protection. The hair is protecting the flesh. How does the hair protect the flesh? Well, somehow it's covering a little bit. This tiny amount is being protected by that hair. What's it called? The follicle. Umiyah kashemer al gabi shemer. We had yesterday. We don't have two peels of an onion being a shemer. You only have one shemer. You can't have. So here we have the skin, and then you have the hair is on top of the skin. And Gemara says no, that's not true. The Gemara says no. The follicle, the hair, goes through the skin and starts at the base of the skin, and there is no skin where the hair is. So Maskefla Ravacha Bar Yaakov Elamiyata Tefillin Hechi Makasminan. If there's no skin where the hair is, how do we write tefillin? You can't write tefillin. The writing of the tefillin, when you take the quill over the parchment, you can't have holes in the parchment. It needs to be perfectly smooth without any holes in there. So if you're telling me that the hair follicles, the hair, the holes go all the way through the skin, so then you can't write tefillin. And why are we trying to do this? Because we're trying to say that the hair is a shomer. Why do we want to say the hair is a shomer? Because we want to answer Rish Lakish that says the hair is not a yad, that you can't impart tumah through hair as a handle, but it still protects. Oh, it protects, that's a different story. So we're trying to resolve that, but we're coming up with a question now, how you're going to write tefillin on parchment if the hair goes through.
But doesn't the parchment come in different layers? I mean, the one maybe that's just below the hair follicles.
Yeah, it's a funny question. Just wait for the answer, you'll see it. There's another answer, but Veleka, you don't have ksiva tama. Ksiva tama means perfect. It says uchsav tam, and the Gemara learns from that ksiva tama. Tama means perfect. You need to write whole letters. You can't have letters that are broken. So the Gemara answers, you're forgetting what it says in the West. West means Eretz Yisrael. Kol nekev shad yoyoy for a love. Any sort of hole that the ink can pass over, ain't a nekev. It's not considered a hole. So yes, the hair goes through. But if when you write it, the ink doesn't drop through it, so then that's not considered a hole. A hole in the parchment would be if the ink falls through and you're left with a hole. But here the ink spreads over it. Otherwise we're going to go crazy. I mean, everything has a hole. I mean, there's more empty space, and the physics of it, there's more empty space than... It doesn't look like that, but that's what it is. Okay. V'iba yasema, if you want, we could do it a little differently. Kula mishum yad. Oh, this is interesting. We just said that the hair is not a yad. We're saying it is a yad. Yad means the handle for the tumah to spread out. So we say Keda Amar Rabbi Law. Rabbi Law said, "B'malay shebein hamalayim." I looked up this word. Does it say over there on?
Yeah.
And on. It's the hair that grows on top of the wheat stalk, or on the corn we call it silk or something. The corn silk. But here in the stalk, it has like these little pieces of hair that are growing out. That's called the on. So Rabbi Loy said that we're not talking about that you touched one hair. You're talking about that you grabbed the whole thing. And why does Rish Lakish say
the whole thing when you say
the whole bunch of hair, the whole tassel? Why?
Yellow is in here. And that's
why does Rish Lakish say it's not a yad? Because if you grab it as a handle, it's gonna rip. So it's not a good handle. But if you're saying that you're not grabbing just one hair, you're taking the whole tassel or the whole lock, the whole thing of hairs. So then it's not going to rip. That's he'll agree as a yad. So that's what we're talking about over here. Besara shekenegdei tamei. We say if it touches the hair, it's talking about it touched all the hair. Hachanami b'nim shvein anim. We're talking about that it touched the hair within the hairs, but it's all together, and therefore it will be considered a handle. Where does Rabbi Loy's statement? We borrowed an answer from Rabbi Loy, but we never got the original discussion of Rabbi Loy. It says Rabbi Loy. So, it was said about this. It says, Miloy shebeshibolin metamin umetamin. This group of fibers that are growing on the stalk of wheat become tamei. Mitamin means become tamei. Umitamin means and will give off tamei. The difference that yud over there changes if it's receiving it. So that group of hairs will make it tamei, will make the stalk tamei, will also give off tamei outside. If the stalk was tamei and it touches other food, then through contact with those hairs, those other foods will become tamei. However, ve'inam mitzdarfen, but they don't join together to be the size that you need for food, which is the size of an egg. We said, Miloi l'may chazi, what do you do with this? One hair, what is it? Amar Rabbi Loi b'miloi shebein hamalayim. Rabbi Loi says, we're not talking about one hair, we're talking about the whole group of hair, and it could be used as a handle to hold it. Okay. Lishnachrina, we have another interpretation over here. It's interesting because the conversation between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish gets adjusted in this Lishnachrina. that it's not exactly the same as we had it before. It's another version. Then we're going to have a third version of it over here, which is totally adjusted, a different discussion. So far, our discussion was there's a single here, a yad, and we've concluded that a single here, according to Rish Lakish, is not. According to Rabbi Yochanan, it is, but Rish Lakish would agree that if it's a bunch of hairs together, that it is. Another version, Lishna Achrin, another version of this discussion is Amrila Hachinam Mistaber. It also makes sense to Mishum Shaimer, that it's because of a Shaimer. In other words, that the hair that's making a Tameh is a Shaimer, as we said in our Gemara. D'isal Kedaitach Mishum Yad, because if you would say that it's a Yad, Nima Achas L'may Chazi, then how could it be a Yad? In other words, over here, we're going a little different. Over here, we're assuming that when we start this Gemara, that Rish Lakish doesn't hold of even a bunch of hairs together being a Yad. So Rish Lakish says it has to be a Shaimer, because what could you do with the hair? So the Gemara says, Kedam Rabbi Loy b'mlay shebein malayim. No, it's not so. If it's a bunch of hairs together, it does have a use. It could be a handle. So achinami b'nima shebein anim. So in other words, we have no proof that it's a Shaimer. It could be considered a handle if it's a hair amongst other hairs. Where was Rabbi Loy said originally? On this Mishnah that it says that this on that's on the stalk of wheat becomes tamei and gives off tamei ve'in mitzdarfen, and it doesn't join to the size. Milai l'may chazi, and what does milai do? Amar Rabbi Loy b'milai shebein amalayim. It's the milai that's the on hairs amongst the other hairs. Okay, so we had two versions of the Machlekes Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish, and in the second version, Rish Lakish immediately jumps into saying that it needs to be a Shaimer to answer the Mishnah, that the hair is considered a Shaimer, and that's why it's giving off Tumah. And the Gemara answers that no, it's not necessarily a Shaimer. It could be a Yad if it's a bunch of hairs together. Now we're going to say the same discussion on the Mishnah, that we have a Machlekes Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish on our Mishnah. If you remember, the Mishnah says, it's going to quote it, we're on top of page Kufchaf. The skin, the gravy, the pieces of spices, all of these combine to Tumah Seichlin. Now, when we said in this, we also mentioned bones. In that, etc., it also says hatzamis, the bones. Now, when we say that it combines, these things combine, mitzdarfen doesn't just mean it gives off tumah. Mitzdarfen means that it creates the size of tumah. Now, what can create the size of tumah other than the food itself is only something that's a shaymer. So, for example, inside this is food. This would need to be the size of an egg to give off tumah. But let's say it would only be the size of an egg together with the peel. So you'd say, well, the peel is a shaymer. That could combine. The shaymer could combine. What about the handle? Does the handle combine? So, no, the handle doesn't combine. If you touch the handle, the stem, you'll become tamei. The person doesn't become tamei from food. Other food touches, it will become tamei, but you can't count the stem as part of the size.
The shomer can be
mitzdaref. The mitzdaref combined to the shir. Now, when we mention in the Mishnah that the skin and the bones are mitzdaref, it must be that we're dealing with the shomer, not a yad, because we said mitzdaref. Only the shomer is mitzdaref. So Amar Rish Lakish leishanu alei etzem dahavi shomer. The Mishnah is only talking about the etzem that's a shomer. How is a bone a shomer? Because it has marrow inside. There's another type of bone that's a yad. it has meat at the other end. So Rish Lakish says that when you mention in the Mishnah bones, it can only be bones that are a shaymer, because he said mitzdarif, aval nima. But let's say there would be a hair on the skin. We said the skin is mitzdarif. The skin is a shaymer, it protects the meat. But if there would be a hair on the skin, loy avi shaymer, the hair is not a shaymer. So this is different than what we said before. Before, in the first version, we said the hair is not a yad because it rips. Now we're saying the hair is not a shomer. So we have a new way of learning this machlekes Rabbi Yochanan Rish Lakish.
Why isn't the skin itself a shomer?
The skin is. The skin is.
Then who cares about the...
Well, if someone touched the hair, or if the hair, well, that would be a yad. But or can I combine the hair to make the shear? If there's a lot of hair, fur or something, can I combine that to make the size that I need to become tamei, to give off tamei? Aval nima lo yavi shomer. The hair is not a shomer. Rabbi Yochanan mafilu nima nami yavi shomer. Rabbi Yochanan says that the hair is also a shomer. So we go through the same Gemara again. It's a little repetitious. Amalei Rish Lakish le Rabbi Yochanan. So Rish Lakish now asks Rabbi Yochanan, "Umiyaka shomer al gabi shomer." How can you say the hair is a shomer? You can't say the hair is a shomer. You have the skin already. You can't have a shomer on top of a shomer. We said 2 peels of an onion don't work. The outer peel.
Yesterday I tried to peel onions to see how you just keep on peeling and peeling. I mean, I could not differentiate the outer and the inner, even though the first layer or two was that very flaky one. But then you could still keep on peeling. So I have no idea where your middle layer is, unless it's when you say that flaky kind of stuff that dry, more yellowish brown when it comes off, and then you're on that more off-white one.
You could have done it here, so we could have.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, pick it
Right.
up, and there were a
Right.
few layers.
Right.
You didn't cry trying to figure it out.
Well, I
Okay.
cried thinking about you. Just kidding.
I don't know. I assume the onions are the same as our onions, but it's hard to make these assumptions because they get modified through what's it called?
GMO.
Not genetically, but they mutate. It turns differently with different varieties, and then how do we know if we have the same variety that they're dealing with?
It's even worse is those reddish purple onions, whatever they're called. You think you get rid of the color, and then you find the next one the same color as the
Okay, so the Gemara says, how can you have a shomer on top of a shomer? Well, Rabbi Yochanan answers, that's easy. Chalchul mechalchal, there's a hole. Your hair follicle goes through the hole. It's not a shomer on top of a shomer. It goes through. So maskefla Ravacha. Ravacha says, El miyata tefillin hechi kasvinan. How do you write tefillin if there's a hole on the skin? Habina ksivatama baleka. It has to be clearly smooth and filled in. Perfect writing. So the Gemara answers, Ishtamitzi adam marava kol nekev shadia ivra lavena nekev. Any hole that the ink can pass over is not considered a hole. Right? You want to sit here?
Yes,
That's the gauge, huh?
That's the gauge. I remember learning in one time in Koil we were learning Hilchas Stam, the laws of tefillin. We were learning Siman on the Bais. I remember I was looking in the sefer over there. We were talking about a hole in the parchment. So this Reb Shlomo Kluger writes that usually we say if something is 3 tefachim, it's called lavud. So it's considered that it's combined. So we have a rule that you can't have the hole in the parchment. So he asked, but you should say lavud, like we say by a sukkah. It's not 3 tefachim wide, so it should be combined. So it was just like such a strange thing, how like the whole Torah to him was all, everything mixes together. You throw all the svaras into the same pot, and then you see what you come up with. Obviously when you're building, you say lavud. Do you say lavud in a here we said no. The ink has to pass over. Okay. Eisvi Rabbi Yochanan Rish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan asked Rish Lakish a question. Or sheyesh lav kazayis basar hanegei b'tziva yotzim mimenu basar sheknegli tamei. If you have a piece of meat that has on its skin, if someone touches that, the skin that has on it a kazayis of meat, if someone touches a strand of meat, so he's tummy. And if he touches a strand of the skin, probably it's tummy. And if he touches a strand of hair, so he's also tummy. So my lav mishum shaymer. Obviously, hair is a shaymer. That's Rabbi Yochanan's opinion in this instance. Gemara says lo mishum yad. It's not a kasha on Rish Lakish. Rish Lakish says it's a yad. It's a handle. Really? Nima achas v'maychazia. What are you going to do with the one hair? You can't do anything with one hair. It's going to rip. That's not a good yad. That's not a handle. Kedam Rabbi Loi b'miloi shpenim malayim. No, we're talking about that it was a bunch of hairs, and you touched one of the hairs amongst all the hairs. So, which means that it's like a group of hair. Hachinami b'nima shebein animin. Also here it's talking about that it's the hairs. Now we go back and explain the quote that we said, Miloi shebein amalayim. Beheche itmed Rabbi Loi. Where did Rabbi Loi say that? Ahadetnan, on that Mishnah that says Hamaloi shebeshibalim metamin umetamin, that the hairs on the stalk of grain become tummy and give off tumah. Bein mitzdarfen, but they don't join to the tumah. Miloi l'maychazi, how does it give off and receive? L'maychazi, what is it? What can you do with it? Amrei b'loi b'miloi shebein amalayim, that it's a bunch of hairs together which can be used as a handle. Okay. Next piece of Gemara. So basically what we did so far was we had a discussion, Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish, regarding hair. If hair could be considered a handle, if hair could be considered a shaymer, and if a bunch of hairs together could be a handle. V'haraitiv. We said in the Mishnah that the raitiv, the gravy, combines to the food that's in the pot. And even if it's a small amount of food, but together with the gravy you can have the size of an egg. My raitiv. What does it mean, the gravy? Amar Rava Shumna. Rava says it means the fat. It's fat that's on top of the soup, that congeals on the top. Amalei Abaya. Abaya says, what? You're missing the point of the Mishnah. The Mishnah says that if I have food, but I don't have enough, I can use these other items that aren't really food to combine with the food to make a shear. Now you're telling me that fat is combining with the food. Fat is food. Hu atzma yitma seichlin. That's not combining. Mitzaref means I can take the skin and I can use it to combine. I can take the bone, and possibly if it's an outer bone, if it's a marrow inside, I can take these other things that aren't food. But you just told me fat. You can use the fat. That's the food itself. That's part of the food. That's not something that's mitzaref. Rather, Ella.
Is it though? I mean, once it becomes like you look at a piece of chicken, and then a couple of days later the fat comes off. Is it still? You consider it part of the?
They did. Take a look at the next answer.
Mm-hmm.
Ella, chaylev the karish. We're talking about chaylev that congealed. Now, we're saying that it congealed. That's our emphasis here. We're talking about something that congealed. Now the Gemara asks, "My area karish. Why did it change from chaylev to shuman? Does it want to tell me that it's prohibited?" So the fat itself. Rather, the term right is referring to fat oozed out of the meat and congealed. Fat is not eaten, but it does join together with the meat. So what was the difference between the first fat? Right there, the fat that floats on the top of the soup of cooked meat. Somehow this is a different sort of fat that's not eaten. Maybe because it's prohibited. That doesn't make sense that it should be cooked together. Okay. So it's something that oozed out of the meat that's not eaten, and it's congealed. So the Gemara asks, why does it have to congeal for this Mishnah to make sense? Kilei karish nami, even if it's in a liquid form, it should be the same halacha. The Gemara says, no. First, before we get to the answer, we prove our question. The question is that if you have a vegetable and you have a gravy that floats out, that oozes out of this vegetable, and on Yom Kippur you're not allowed to eat. How much are you not allowed to eat on Yom Kippur? The size of a large date. It's called kaiseves. Kaiseves is a large date. Now, you can't eat a large date size of this vegetable. But if you eat the liquid from this large date, not the liquid from the large date. Eat the liquid from the vegetable, the size of a large date, so that will also join together that will also join together to be the prohibited size. And so what we're saying here is, why are you saying that the fat that congeals is considered that it's food, that it combines with the meat, even if it doesn't congeal, as we see on Yom Kippur, that if I have liquid that comes out of a vegetable, it doesn't need to congeal. I should explain one point, that there's a difference between food and drink, that they have different measurements. We need it to be food for it to be the same size. If it's both food, then it's fine. Here we're saying that the fat congealed, so it's both food. We said, why does it need to congeal? Even if it's liquid, it also joins to the size, as we see by Yom Kippur. The Gemara says, Hassam, it's different. By Yom Kippur, over there, we're looking for something that will satisfy a person who's fasting. If he eats the size of a large date, it will satisfy him. Even if that food that's joining to the size of a large date is liquid as well, it will join if it's the liquid that came from the food. Whatever it is, it will consider to be satisfying to his mind, and he'll feel that he's eaten. But over here, we're trying to combine it to a size. It's not just to make him feel satisfied. Here we need an actual measurement. So ikarish, if it congealed, mitzdaref, it will join. Karish, but if it's not congealed, mitzdaref, we're not going to consider it as a solid. We're going to consider it as a liquid, and it's not going to join to the size that we need for a solid, for tuma, which is egg. Okay. Vahakipa. Kipa is, we said, is little pieces of sediment in the stew that can also combine to the stew to make the shear that will give off tuma. My kipa, what is kipa? Amar Rabba, or Rava probably. Rava says, pirma. It's the small pieces of meat that fall to the bottom. In this Gemara it said it's hash, right? It sounds exciting, but it's actually, it's just the pieces of meat that fall to the bottom. Amalei Abaya. Abaya says, Hu atzmiyat. What do you mean? Small pieces of meat? That's regular, like ground meat, ground beef. That's not non-food that's combining to food. That's food. So that itself is tummy. Hu atzmiyat mituma seiflan. That I don't need it to combine. That's combining means I have something that's not food that joins with the food and it makes a shear. Elam Rav Papa says tavlin. We're talking about spices. There's different types of spices. Some spices you put in and you eat them. Some spices you put in and you take them out. You don't eat much. So you don't eat it. There's like the bay leaves or whatever.
Yeah.
You put in the spices. You have to take it out afterwards. So those things can combine to the shear, even though you don't eat them. That's something interesting. Tanan Hassam was taught over there. Hikves Adam. Okay, we're going to start a very interesting